Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Tanzeen Mirza. Today we'll see an important concept in JavaScript. Today we'll talk about temporal dead zone. But to understand temporal dead zone, we'll have to understand a variable hosting first. And to understand variable hosting, first we'll have to learn about JavaScript two-phase execution. So sounds a lot, but believe me, it's pretty simple and you will be able to learn it very quickly, very easily. So let's first start with JavaScript two-phase execution. And since this video is focused on the interview question only, so I'll not deep dive into the details. Okay, I'll just explain the concepts very quickly and then we'll move ahead with this temporal dead zone. Okay, so let's start with the JavaScript two-phase execution first. Okay, actually in JavaScript, unlike other languages, in JavaScript execution happens twice. It happens in two phases. First phase is the memory allocation phase and the second phase is the actual execution phase. Okay, I'll explain both of them. So in memory allocation phase, what happens? In this phase, all the variables are allocated a memory and they are assigned a special value called undefined. And in this phase, all the executions will be ignored. I have prepared a small PPT. I'll go through that. I'll show you that. Let me run this. Okay, so as you can see on the left hand side, we have a very simple code. We have console over. First we are logging out this a variable var a, and then assigning it this numeric value 10, and then we are declaring one more variable called b, which we are assigning a string called hello, and then similarly just console log c, and where c is equals to true. So there is something different with this code. If we compare this code with other programming languages, the difference is that we are trying to use the value, or we are trying to print or use the value even before the declaration. Okay, so this is an error for most of the programming languages, but in JavaScript the case is slightly different. It's little different. I'll explain. I'll come to that. Okay, so yeah, so let's do the first phase. What happens in the first phase? It will go through, the compiler will ignore all the declaration. It will declare all the executions and it will see where the declaration is happening. So let's do it line by line. Compiler will come here and it will see that okay, it's an execution. I'll ignore that. Let's go to the next line. It goes to the next line immediately. This is phase one. Okay, memory allocation phase is going on. Now it says okay, there is a variable a equals to 10, which is a declaration. All right, automatically it will assign a and it will assign a special value called undefined. Okay, simple. Now it will come to line b, line third. Here it will see that okay, there is a variable called b and this is also a declaration. Okay, let's assign this b a memory location and then let's say it's undefined. Okay, now on the third line again it will come here. On the fourth line it will see okay, it's not a declaration, it's a execution. We are console logging that c. It will simply ignore this part. Now it will come to variable c, that's the last line, and yeah, it's a declaration. It will assign a memory space and it will assign undefined over there. Okay, that is why you do not get any error in JavaScript even if you try to access a value even before it is declared anywhere in the program. Okay, this was the phase one, which is the memory allocation phase. Now second phase, which is the execution phase. Okay, so in this phase reverse will happen. In this case all the declarations will be ignored but all the executions will happen. Okay, now console a. Now it will come to console a, console log a. What's the value of a? Right now it's undefined. It will simply print undefined. I wanted to create one output thing also over here, but due to some reason I wasn't able to do that, so I'll just voice over. Okay, so when the execution phase will start, it will start execution from the very first line. Okay, The compiler will see, okay, it's not a declaration, it's an execution, and the execution says console log a, so it will print the value of a which is undefined. That's why you will see undefined on the output. Now it will come to second line, which is a declaration. The compiler will say, oh, it's a declaration. So since it's the execution phase, it will ignore the declarations because it's looking for the execution code, line of code. Okay, so a will be ignored, but no, here if we are applying equals to, so this is also a kind of execution only. Okay, so this was the declaration also, and this was the execution also. So during the execution, during the very first phase, which was our memory allocation phase, we declared one variable a, and it got undefined. Now this is also a kind of execution where we are executing or we are assigning a value to a. Okay, so what will happen, instead of a, undefined will go, and that will be replaced by the actual value, which is 10. Okay, now it will come to the third line. It will see it's a declaration, it will try to ignore, but also it's an execution also. B equals to hello, we are assigning, we are executing something. Okay, so what will happen, b will go away, undefined will go away, and it will be replaced by the actual string hello, which we are assigning. Now it will come to the fourth line. Yes, it's a sure shot execution. It will console log what, c. So on the output you will see undefined. Okay, because it is undefined right now. Now it will come to the fifth line, the last line, and yes, this is a declaration, but also it's an execution. Okay, declaration already happened in the memory execution, in the memory allocation phase. Now it will try to assign true in C. So undefined will go away, and that will be replaced by this boolean value called true. Okay, so that's how it works. Now things will get little different. This is not the only thing. I'll talk about script, I'll talk about global memory scope, block scope, script scope. I'll come to that. Then there is let keyword, there is const keyword. I'll come to that also. Okay, but just to build the concept, just to explain you the very basic thing, what is two-phase memory execution. Okay, so this is what happens in JavaScript. And yes, this also explains variable hosting. Variable hoisting. Variables are moved to the top of the program, and moving to the top doesn't mean that the variable declaration are actually moving to the top. Okay, top of the program. So this line of code, let's say variable a, variable b, variable c, so these lines of code will remain here only. Okay, but due to the two-phase execution, variables were allotted memory space, right? All the variables were allotted memory space even before they were used. Okay, however, in most of the programming languages it's an error, but this in JavaScript it's completely all right. It is okay, that's the behavior. Okay, but because of this two-phase execution, it looks like, it gives a feeling that the variables have been moved to the top. It looks like that it was like this. I'll just show it quickly. Okay, it looks like that all the declaration have been moved to the top. That's why we were able to access these variables. So this is what we call variable hosting. And in function hosting also it's the same thing. In function hosting also, I'll come to that if time permits later, but this is the entire concept of variable hosting. Now let's come to the actual topic, that is our temporal dead zone. This temporal dead zone, this makes sense, or this basically this applies, we can say it's more or less related to let and const keywords. Okay, but first let me show you something else. I'll go back to the same code I have written in VS Code also. Close this and I'll just zoom in. Okay, so the same program is there. We have a console log. First we are doing this console log, variable a, variable b, console log c, and this c equals to true. I'm going to run this program on Chromium, Google Chrome basically. Okay, I'll run this program and I'll go to the inspect. First, before that, I'll go to sources and let me put one breakpoint here. Okay, after, let me make some room. Yeah, okay, I'll put one breakpoint here itself. Okay, so that the execution, okay, this debugging happens only in the execution phase. Okay, I'll rerun the program. Let's see. Okay, the breakpoint is here, so the execution has stopped here. But you will notice one thing. See, variable a, variable c. Okay, these three variables we had. Okay, though the execution has stopped here, it is being paused over here. It will not proceed until and unless I press this button, play. Okay, resume the script execution. I have stopped it here, the debugger. So that means, but still, what we notice that A is already there. See, undefined. B is already there. The value is undefined, and C is already there, undefined. So this is what happened in the memory execution, memory allocation phase, the very first phase. Remember what I told? So it first scans the entire code from tip to toe, from top to bottom, and then it assigns all the variable a memory location, and it provides a default value called undefined. Okay, so that's what happened. See, even the execution has not happened yet, but the variables were declared. Though they are undefined, but they have got their position in global. Okay, this is the global space. In the in a couple of moments, in a couple of minutes, I'll tell you there is a script scope also. This is global scope. There similarly there is a script, there is block, there are this and that. I'll come to that. Okay, but see, A is there, B is there, C is there. Okay, that is why if we go to console and if I pass this execution, what you will see is, okay, 10 and undefined it says. Why it says undefined? Because, yeah, so why it says undefined for that? Just a second, let me remove the breakpoint and let me just rerun the program. We'll go to console. See, it says undefined and undefined. Why it says undefined? Because during the memory allocation phase, we saw that in the global stack, since I've removed the breakpoint, it won't show, it has just gone away. So it was showing undefined and defined. That is why. Okay, and in the second phase, when the execution happened, then only it assigned the values. That's why we are able to see the values. Okay, now I'll just tweak the code little bit, and instead of, yeah, here I'll just do it like this. Now you will notice that we have got the value 10 and undefined. Okay, because during the memory allocation phase, A was assigned the value undefined, B undefined, C undefined. Okay, and when the execution phase occurred, then A was assigned the value, then it was called. Okay, A was undefined, then because of A equals to 10, undefined was replaced by 10, and then we are doing console log, so it was printing the correct value. But for C, first it was printed, that means it was still undefined because the assignment is happening later, in the later stage, in the later line of code. Okay, so first we had printed undefined and then we are assigning it to true. If again I put, wait a second, I'll show you once more. If I put this line after this, so you will notice that I'll rerun the program. Let's go to console. See, first it was true. For C, it became undefined and then it became true. Okay, it was like that. So this is variable hosting. Okay, and this is two-phase execution. Now let's remove all these things. Let me remove the console log also. Let's keep only ABC. But here is a twist. What we'll do is, instead of var, we'll make it let, and instead of this var, we'll make it const. Now let's see what happens. Control save. Okay. In fact, let me open both the windows side by side. I hope there is enough space. Okay, let me make some room also. Refresh the page. Okay. Now I'll put the breakpoint over here, and yeah, I'll refresh the page. Okay, see what happened. There is a difference. So where is defined under global. See, this is the global scope, and A is, though it is undefined because we are not because this is the memory execution phase, right? Memory allocation phase, right? Execution is still waiting for we are still waiting for the execution to happen. So this will still show undefined. A is undefined, but in global scope it is there. But what happened to the B and what happened to C? I don't see B and C over here. See, it went to script B and C. That's the difference. If I go back there and if I make A, B, and C, all three as where, I'll save the code and I'll refresh the page. See, A, B, and C. Though they are undefined, but yes, now they are in global scope. But this is not the case with let and const. Oops. Let and const. The case is different for let and const. I'll refresh the page. Yeah, see, still A, B, and C are undefined, but this time A is in global, which is in var, but let and const went into script. This is the difference. Okay, that's the difference. Now, what if I try to print, let's say I try to print A. Okay, even before assigning, if I try to print A, what should be the output? What should be the output? I'll refresh the page. Execution is still here. Okay, I'll just pass it. Go to console. Okay, it says undefined. Okay, it says undefined because the assignment is happening in the this line, third line. Okay, but before even assigning, we are just trying to print it, so that's why it is saying that. Okay, now what will happen if I try to do same thing? A is fine. Okay, now what if I try to do the same thing with B? I'll refresh the page again. Okay, display. Okay, something is wrong. I'll go to console. Okay, see what it is saying. For A it is printing undefined. That makes sense because we are trying to access it before the declaration. That makes sense. Okay, but for B it is saying reference error, cannot access B before initialization. Okay, it is saying that. Let's check for this guy also. For const also, let's see. What if I try to access C? Okay, run. In fact, let's remove the breakpoint. We don't need it for now. I'll just refresh, go to console and see. After undefined, it went to B and then it stopped even there. It did not even try to execute further. The execution has stopped at this point itself. Okay, so for some time, let me just remove it and just see what will happen for const. Let's try that. Save the code, refresh the page and see. For C also it is saying cannot access C before initialization. So that's what I wanted to show you. So there is some difference between, so the variable hosting happens for all, for all three, variable, let and const. Yes, they are hosted, they are allocated the memory space like variable, like var. Okay, they are assigned that special value called undefined. Everything remains the same except the execution phase, except the scope. So as I showed you previously also, I'll just put one breakpoint and try to do this. See, variable, I mean this var is always assigned a is always assigned a memory in global space. That's why we are able to use it, though it will show undefined. That is a different thing, that's a different concept, but at least we are able to access them. But B and C, which are let and const respectively, they went into script, and let and this script, whatever comes under this script block, okay, that we cannot access until and unless execution phase happened. Okay, so literally, you can say conceptually, they are like dead. B and C exist. A also exists. B and C also exists. I mean, this let and const, they also exist, but temporarily they are dead. So this lag between the memory allocation, I'm talking about let and const only. So for let and const, the lag between, we can define it like that. So for let and const, that lag between the memory allocation phase and the actual execution phase, this time lag is known as temporal dead zone. Okay, this time gap is known as temporal dead zone. I'll try to print B after the memory allocation, and also I'll try to print C after the memory allocation. Now let's see what happens. I'll just refresh the page. Okay, still they are in undefined and defined script block, and A is in global block. I'll run it. We'll go to console. Now we are getting the correct values. See, for A we are getting undefined. We are able to use it before that's the difference. See, we are able to use variable A even before the declaration because it was in global scope. But for let and const, there is some difference. Okay, for let and const, there is some partiality happening over here. We can say like that. So the partiality is, yes, they are allocated the memory space and everything, but we cannot access anything from a block other than a script. I mean, sorry, that other than global, we cannot access anything from there until and unless execution phase happens. So this time lag, where it was throwing the error, remember reference error, cannot access B before the initialization, that for that moment of time, for those few seconds, it remains dead. Let and const remains dead. That time period, that lag, that gap is actually known as temporal dead zone. So if an interviewer asks you, are let and const also hosted, the answer is yes. They are also hosted like where, they also get their memory space like where, they also get that special value called undefined like where, but they remain dead until and unless the execution phase is completed. So that's the difference, and that's the temporal dead zone. So I hope the concept is clear now. We'll do some good examples very soon, and I hope this was useful. So if you have any doubts, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below. I'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. So thank you so much guys for watching this video.